I'm Naomi Kyle, and this is Brian Altano. We're going to be talking about franchises that have returned from the dead. Welcome, guys.
Welcome, thanks. Thanks for having me, Naomi.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So we have the giggles, clearly. But we're going to be talking about Wolfenstein to begin with. So why don't you tell us a bit about how this game returned from the dead, because it just came out last week.
Yeah, so Wolfenstein's a really interesting franchise. It's been around since 1981, which is how long I've been around. And I'm back from the dead.
An old bloke.
And it's kind of synonymous with first-person shooters for a while. On the PC, it was sort of neck and neck with Doom and games like Hexen and stuff like that. And we saw more versions of it kind of like iterate every few years.
Yeah.
Until 2009, where just flat out a game called Wolfenstein came out, and it wasn't received very well. And that's, sometimes like it's not always like one game that kills a franchise or a mentality or a studio or anything like that. Sometimes things just stop. And it did stop for 5 years, and now it's back, and the new order's out. We reviewed it, we enjoyed it. I'm playing it right now. I'm really having a good time with it. And it's kind of interesting to see something like that was so synonymous with games for so long disappear and now come back. And now it's like, it's gritty and it's more realistic than ever, and it's just really cool to see something like that.
Cool characters, cool story, everything.
So, which franchise that came back from the dead do you want to talk about?
Tomb Raider.
Ooh, that's a really good one.
Tomb Raider was, I mean, it was awesome for a long time. And I think with Angel of Darkness in 2003, people, I mean, it was a buggy game that it wasn't well received. I think after that, they kind of went back to the drawing board, and it was only until 2006 with Tomb Raider Legend that they really kind of went back to their roots. And then finally people were like, okay, this is the Tomb Raider game that we know and we love. And then the reboot, of course, in 2013, which you raved about and played
I
fully.
really loved it, and it was interesting to see, like, I mean, I grew up playing Tomb Raider games, just like you did, and I played more of them because I was older. But that was sort of like one of those games that was synonymous with when you talked about video game franchises. Right?
Yes.
Like Tomb Raider was one of them. Yeah. And we saw new Tomb Raiders every year, and they came, like you said, to every single platform. And then it was kind of odd that, like, we reached the point, I think, where they almost like kind of hit the cap of what they could do with those games.
Yeah.
They had this sort of like kind of cartoony, kind of campy heroine come out and save the world and collect relics and stuff like that. And then it just went away. And in 2009, like you said, you know, we didn't see it for a while. And then a few years later, 2013, it came back, and it was gritty and it was violent, and it was like the deaths were like impaling.
It was emotional.
Yeah, and Lara Croft was
crazy ride.
Covered in blood and mud and dirt, and she was like murdering people.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, this franchise, not only did it disappear for a long time, but it's back, and it's actually like feels way more refreshed than I think it ever did. So
more relatable in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I get impaled when I'm going down a river all the time.
She's more of a believable character.
Yeah.
Is what I meant.
I totally agree. So I think like sometimes it is good for a video game franchise to take a break. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, there's annualized games like Assassin's Creed we see every year, Call of Duty we see every year, Battlefields and stuff like that. Tomb Raider was like that for a while, and I think we reached a breaking point.
People either got bored or they just weren't into it anymore. It was the same thing every game.
And now it's back and it's different, and I kind of can't wait to see what goes next.
Me too. Yeah. I'm excited for the next one. We got Rayman.
Rayman. So this is one of my favorite video game franchises that came back from the dead, because growing up there was a time where Rayman was kind of like, there were people that played Mario games, there were people that played Sonic games, and there were people that played Rayman games. Like, obviously the platforming genre in general was way healthier back in the 80s and 90s. But in the last few years there's been sort of this resurgence of old school like 2D platformers coming back. And Rayman did the same thing as Mario and Sonic. It did go 3D, and it did go kind of open world-ish and collectathons and stuff like that. So to see it disappear after 16 years.
Yeah.
16 years, the Rayman franchise.
It was pretty much just around, but no one was talking about it really. And then with Raving Rabbids, of course, I think people didn't like the direction that franchise was taking.
Well, so the Raving Rabbids franchise was kind of like, it felt like a spin-off to Rayman, and you would.
It didn't feel like Rayman.
It didn't feel like Rayman. Yeah. So like when you go a year or two without a game, you're like, all right, I'm ready for the next one. When you go 5 years without a game, you're like, what the hell is going on? When you go 16 years without a game, you straight up give up. So when Rayman came back, and Rayman Origins was so awesome, I reviewed it for IGN. I really, really loved it. Artistically beautiful, one of the nicest looking video games, I think, aesthetically ever created. And it's really fun with 4 players. Or 3 if you like things to be a little less frantic. It was so cool to see Rayman come back from the dead as something that was kind of like still connected to its old 2D roots,
yes,
but also reinventing itself on the fly and able to compete with the Marios and the Sonics and stuff like that all over again. So yeah, 16 years was a long time to wait for a sequel to Rayman, but it was kind of worth the wait with Rayman Origins and its sequel Rayman Legends, which came a year later. I'm really happy those games came back. I don't want to wait another 16 years for that game or any
for
game.
any game.
For anything ever.
Ever in the history of video games. All right, thanks, Brian. Those have been your franchises that have returned from the dead. Rather, those are just 3. We have more in an article that you can check out on IGN. Of course, tell us your favorite franchises that have returned in the comments below, and stay tuned for more on awesome gaming news on IGN.